All right, so making a coil pot. We're gonna start with a base. So just like with the pinch pot, I'm gonna start with a ball. Let's get that air bubbles start popping in there. Tighten this clay up. All right, so now I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to start to flatten it out. So I'm going to take this, put some pressure here. So now it's starting to look like a hamburger patty, right? The shape of it, like as far as not being like a perfect circle, is not really a big deal because you can draw the shape on that you want to do. What I'm going for is even on the thickness, right? This clay needs to be even. See how it's starting to stretch out a little bit, right? I just started trying that, right? And it works pretty good. Really need to open a pizza place. So I'm rotating that while I'm doing this. Like while I'm flipping it over, I'm actually rotating this clay and popping it. Every time I do it, it's like a quarter turn, and I toss it in my other hand. So it really is stretching it out. Again, never really tried it, but until today, learned something new, right? So what I'm doing now is just sort of dropping this onto the table that I'm working on. I just want to get it down to that thickness that is ideal for clay, which is about 1/4 of an inch. I mean, any thicker than that is too thick, right? Makes the pot too heavy. But I'm also staying really even. I want the thickness of it to be even. I don't want, like some of these edges are going to be thin, but they're going to be cut away because my base isn't that big, right? So this is actually pretty good right here. So I've got the coils already set, and now I need to figure out, what pot am I making, and then start with the construction. So I'm gonna get a sheet of paper so my base doesn't stick. All right, so whatever you're working on, I mean, I wouldn't like throw your clay onto your good table, right? You can do that on paper, right? Or on plastic, whatever it is that you guys are working on. All right, so now I'm gonna get the template that I made. So I'm thinking like this would be the pot that I wanted to make, right? Because I made this template from the other day. This is my outside form, right? You guys see that? Right, so that's my wall, right? Okay. So this would be the inside, but this is what the actual pot would look like when it's finished, right? And this is just a pretty random shape that I just drew to quickly show you how to do this. But what it will tell me like how wide I should make the base, right? And then this is what I'll use as I go through, as I start constructing the wall. I can hold this up next to it, right? And look at the wall as it's being formed. So I know I've got to go in just a little at the base and then start coming out and then bring it back in at the top. So it's basically like this, okay? So I'll keep this around for reference. Now what I need is something round that is about that wide. I'll look around. So I've got this. That's gonna be good enough. That's the closest thing I have. So I don't have to do, right? So I just put that in the center. Use your paper clip or whatever it is you're drawing with on clay. Trace it, your nail, whatever it is. So now I can cut that out. So now I have a base, right? So yeah, and also like when you're cutting things out of flat shapes, like if you keep it straight up and down, it's probably your best bet. If you angle it, it's gonna be angled, right? This is just the start of something, so I'm not really too worried about it. But it is even. Just made it a little thinner, but by making it thinner, I made it wider, but I'm not gonna recut. Okay, so first coils, right? I want to attach them so that they're right here. So I'm going to start with this first coil. You can see what I got, right? So I want to go right on the edge, and I want to pretty much, again, like yesterday I kind of mentioned that you could just stack coils. You could make one coil. I can take this coil and I can attach it to itself once I measure the size of it. I can cut it like this and score, slip, and attach that, and then have a ring, right? Then I can attach that ring. I can make another ring, and then I can attach it in another ring, and just do one like all the way, right? That you can do that, or you can do it the other way. So the other way is what I'm going to do is just kind of keep going all the way around. So first, I want to get a fork to score, right? Just like when you took your pinch pots, you scored things. I'm going to score where the clay is going to be attached. So really important to attach it to this base. I've picked up a lot of pots and the base just fall right off from beginners who didn't score the base. Right? Score the first coil. Then you slip. Okay, so now I've scored and slipped this in place, right? What I want to do now is just I'm just pushing this into the base a little bit. I want to get my thumb kind of moving on the inside, pushing that clay down just a little, just to get it sealed down onto that base. I need this connection to be really good. I know I'm pushing enough when I see a little bit of slip kind of squirt through on the inside, and it's perfect. Now I don't want to affect this going inside or outside too much yet, right? Because this is where I want to start, and then it kind of goes in just a little, but I can sort of go without that, you know, I can start straight, because I'm going to end up with more clay down here at the bottom. You can kind of see how this is starting to, I'm sort of mashing that down so that it gets connected to this base, right? And then I can smooth it out with my finger. I want that connection to just disappear right now. Anytime I'm working, if I'm working inside the pot, wherever I'm working, I'm going to take my other hand and kind of hold it in place so I'm not losing my form. Even if I just started, you know, it's like I'm still, because there's a reaction, there's an action and a reaction here, right? So if I'm doing something here, it's affecting this too. Everything moves, right? So if I want to support it, I'm just going to go ahead and do that, right? So I want to keep things where they are. I don't want them going wherever, right? And letting things just happen like that. That's the biggest thing, like with you guys being beginners, like people start working in one place and then they're like not thinking about all the other places that are being affected by this one place. So you're doing stuff and then you start grabbing here and grabbing there and grabbing, and all of a sudden your pot's like all over the place. Has no direction. You have to direct it. Clay is not going to do anything unless you do it to it, right? It's going to shrink and dry. That's about all it's going to do. All right, so that's sealed down pretty good. Now again, I'm just going to leave this because I'm going to cut that a little more later. Like that's going to get trimmed away once I start building. Okay. All right, so for the next coil, I want to just keep going, right? I don't want to put one coil on at a time. That just doesn't fit my personality when making pots. So I'm just going to keep going, but I'm going to check my form here, kind of see where I need to go. Yeah, so the bottom's good. I need to stay a little tight for a little while, right? And then like the next coil, this one's fine, right where it is. The next one's going to start to go out a little bit. So this one I want to keep tight on the inside. And then the next one's going to start to go out. But since that is going to be the case, I'm going to go ahead and just cut this at an angle. So, and then cut this one at an angle. Then I can attach it, right? Again, paying attention to, if your clay's kind of dry, you should score and slip a lot. This clay is not super dry, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna leave the coil look on the outside, okay? Just so you can see it, right? It doesn't mean that that's what I want you to do. That it's a choice that you make, right? So like the pots that I showed you earlier that have the design with the things going on and the swirly little things, all that stuff. So that means the outside of this pot is not going to be sealed down as much. So the inside needs to be sealed down. So what I'm going to do is take my thumb, and I'm going to have to move around a little bit. So I really want to show you like how this works. So I'm gonna move it close, pushing that clay down, straight down to the bottom. Where I'm pushing it down, my hand is behind it, right? So works a lot better on the ground. So if I'm picking it up, moving it around, I'm affecting the base. And some of these coil marks or coils on the outside, right? will kind of disappear a little, but they're gonna stay, right? So most of it's gonna stay. Now I'm gonna go back in. Need a little bit of water on this, and I want to keep everything smooth on the inside as I go. So you can work anyway, but if you like get finished with the pot and then you look down in there and you see the base is all messed up and all your like attachment marks are still there, right? That's not being a good craftsperson, right? So you need to be a good craftsperson. Pay attention to the little details. If I'm paying attention now, I don't have to pay attention as much. I'm not fighting a losing battle when I'm reaching down inside, a 16-inch pot trying to clean the bottom that I should have done when I started, right? Right now I can reach everything right here. So you could just coil pots. You can make giant coil pots. Right? People do it all the time. This is a very good way to make things, take smaller amounts of clay and make them large. Okay? All right, so I'm gonna set that one aside. Check my tempo before I get started. I think I'm going out a little bit. This one. Yep, just bring it out. So in order to, I can change how this pot goes, right? By how I put the coils. So if I stack them right on top of each other, they're gonna go straight up. If I move the coils slightly in, the form will change and start to close. If I move them slightly out, which I wanna do on this one, the form starts to get bigger, okay? So I'm just gonna lay that, I'm just gonna keep going. Each one I'm going out just a little bit further. And make sure you're staying round, right? Pay attention to the whole thing. Nothing is set until you actually really start to put it on there. I want this to be pretty gradual, but so I'm using this piece, right, to kind of fill in that space to keep it sort of level. And start connecting on the inside. Because this is the only way these things are going to stay together. If I'm using the coil look as a design, right, I really need to clean this on the inside. You know what? I'm going to take that off for a second. Just finish this. Yeah, smooth out as you go. Check your form as you go. Make sure it's doing what you want it to do, right? And not just landing in places, all right? So this one's going to keep going. All right, so I'm going to add something here because, why not, right? This is fill in the space like this. Now, again, I'm connecting all this on the inside. but I want to leave the spaces between them on the outside so they actually show up. Alright, so I've started adding those little balls of clay, right? Now if I take this and cover over it, remember I'm still kind of going out until I get the widest part. Well, you can work in half coils too. Cover up that back. Hold it in place. All right, so one thing you want to pay attention to, so if you're doing this, if you're building in this style, right, you need to make sure that you backfill any holes on the inside with clay. So you want to push down. So I just picked it up and looked, and I saw a couple of holes like through these balls of clay, right? And that's not good for a pot, right? A pot contains things, so if it has holes in it, it's not going to do the best job containing things. So if you want now, like if you want to change things up, and I'm just gonna do some random stuff because I don't want this thing to last like an hour. You know what I mean? I just want to show you a couple more things, and that should be enough for you to be able to do your own thing, right? So if you want to do like the little pinwheel thing, you know, you can make your coil a little smaller, roll it a little thinner. Again, this clay's starting to get a little dry. And that's just because I'm rolling it on a cement board. Right, so if I take this and just start to roll it, depending on how big it is, right? Or I mean, this one's kind of thick, so that could, but it still kind of matches the wall. But you want to make sure you seal down that one side so it doesn't come. Because, you know, like I said, clay shrinks when it dries, and if things are all rolled up, clay, it moves, right? It moves around, so it would easily crack this or come apart. Okay, so then, you know, this would be attached to my wall, and I would probably score and slip it just because it's not. If you had several, you know, that would be different too. You know, you could have like the little balls there, they could be, you could have some here, right? Backing it up, like just attach them. And then, you know, a coil can overlap all this. Like you can fill up the spaces with like the balls of clay. You know, you can start bringing this around. So there's a lot of things that you can do. Now, I'm still keeping with my form, right? I haven't forgotten about this, right? This is still going in the direction I want it to, right? Somewhere up here is where it would start to come in, right? And that's, you just got to pay attention and start directing the clay to go inside. Now, I'm not going to keep this, right? So this is just for, to show you how to do different things with these coils, okay? Does anybody have any questions before I stop the recording of this? No? All right. Again, this could all be smooth, right? I can take all this nonsense off. All right, if I'm doing this and I don't want that, I just smooth down the outside. All right, get all those coils down, and then take your credit card or whatever to smooth it out. I'm just going to do this real fast just so you can see and be done with this thing. All right, take your card and smooth out the surface. And the coils that I did, like the thickness of this coil is good, would be ideal really for what I'm doing right now. Is I like smoothing down the outside too. They're a little thick for just doing one side because that's how I do it. A little bit of water on that card. Really starts to smooth. All right, you can see how smooth that's getting. It smooths that out. So those are just different ways of constructing things. And make sure that you pay attention to the inside, right? Pay attention to it early so you can get down in there and clean it up. So, you don't want to look in a pot or use a pot that has jagged pieces of clay stuck in it, right? So the inside of this pot is just as important as the outside. Understand? All right. So that's that.